And this is the last slide that we finished with last week, where it was what's called a dendritic tree method in which you make decisions. And I highly encourage you to just, even though you might say, oh, I'm not a scientist, I couldn't learn any of this, learn about how to use this approach to actually solve problems for yourself, where you set up questions that you can answer with yes or no, and then you decide where you go from those answers. In this case, all the no's go over here to where if the bottom is not mud or silt. By the way, this starts at the top. This is the very first question asked. And that's the way that this would work in some problem you might be creating for yourself. If the answer is no, this is done here. But you could have a whole set of answers. If the answer was no here, the answer was no here, what would that do? But this one, they all go to this. But the yeses over here, they go to a variety of places. And if there's a yes, it goes to is there ever a drawdown? Does the water level ever decrease by 10 feet? And the answer is yes. You continue. Is the waterway navigable? In other words, can it be used by boats or has homes or is open to the public? Yes, you keep going down. Up here on the top, if you got a yes, you also went over to, is there a proximity of other milfoil? Remember, this is a dendritic chart for ranking what priority a location should have for dealing with milfoil. And in this case, it's the proximity of other milfoil infestations within 50 miles. In this case, if the answer is yes, you go down to the top ranking. If the answer was no, this just doesn't have doesn't show us here. Again, I took this off of another report. Is there plant life on the bottom? That's clearly why we're dealing with this. And this is a yes, and then you go to this high top priority. So this was where I ended last week, and now we're going to keep moving. We're going to keep talking and finish up this study on Lake Tahoe, and then begin to talk a little bit more about other ways in which we deal with aquatic weeds. So another issue of Lake Tahoe, and an issue throughout a lot of ponds in North America, is another species called curly-leaf pondweed. And we'll see some pictures of that in just a minute. It's an aquatic plant with blue-green leaves that attach to spaghetti-like stems and produce small flowers that rise a few inches above the surface. So that last picture of the matting we saw, that was curly-leaf pondweed. Considered a deep water plant, much like milfoil is. It'll go down 30 feet. It'll have its roots in sediments 30 feet below the surface and then be growing up to the surface. It's very common in shallow areas, and it can tolerate really low light conditions and cold water, very similar to milfoil. It grows actively in the winter, which milfoil does too, and it reaches its maximum density in late spring and then dies back in the summer. It can reproduce by seed, but mainly it's done by what are called turions, which are similar to rhizomes.